and welcome back to the Escape Down Under podcast, coming to you from after Stage 5 of the Men's Tour Down Under here in Adelaide. My name's Matt Neef, joined again by Rupert Guinness. Rup, hello.
Hello, Matt. Great again to be back.
And Ronan McLaughlin, hello.
I thought you were going to say they're coming to you from upstairs in the Hilton Hotel with all the noise in the background.
Well, that was next. I was going to get one of you guys to set the scene. So, Ronan, while you're there, why don't you tell us what you can hear, what you can see, what's going on?
I can see an almost endless buffet as the catering staff are preparing for the arrival of the Tour Down Under riders and staff. And no doubt that buffet will, despite its enormous size, will in no way cover what these riders are about to eat.
Gracie Elvin described it last week as the zoo. We recorded from outside the dinner hall the other week, and riders coming in and out, and riders from the women's race and the men's race all together. So a lot of people to feed.
It's feeding time at the zoo now.
It sure is. We're going to talk about where you're off to in a minute, Ronan, because I think it's going to be a pretty fascinating evening. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about stages 4 and 5 of the Tour Down Under. Stage 4 from Murray Bridge to Port Elliot. It turned out to be another pretty classic sprint day here at the TDU. We had a group kick off the front, started by Peter Seri actually from Sudal Quickstep, who started the move and then just decided to sit up, which was a bit weird. But then out front we had Jackson Medway from the Australian national team and Vinicius Rangel from Movistar, Brazilian rider. Now, to be perfectly honest, not a whole lot happened during the stage until the end, but I do want to talk about Jackson Medway briefly. You look like you were about to say something there, Rup.
No, I was about to say it was a great story you wrote about Jackson, because it is a fantastic story. I think you're the one who wrote it, so you should be the one who explains it.
I was just going to say that it's pretty rare to see a guy in a World Tour race who's come through the ranks so quickly. And less than a year ago, the guy was racing B-grade crits up in Brisbane, and now he's in the World Tour peloton, and yesterday was adjudged best, almost combative rider for his ride out in the break. He's 19 years old, he's the youngest rider in the race here. Comes from triathlon, big rangy guy, really strong rider, great position on the bike, and just a really promising talent, I think, coming through the ranks.
And his tour started with a bang, literally, when he crashed on stage 1, and you can imagine, I can only imagine what it would be like in a World Tour event after such a quick rise to that level, and then to crash on the first day, how you'd feel. But he's obviously rallied and he's made the best of every day. He's got tough you-know-whats there, and I just think he's a great person to look for in the future. But good on him, let him enjoy the moment now this week. We spoke about that yesterday, didn't we? So,
tell us, Matt, for those who haven't seen that piece, how, he's not a World Tour rider, he hasn't got a professional contract, how is he riding? It's something to do with an allocation of spots or something, or? Yeah,
that's right. So he did really well last year in the National Road Series. In his first race in the National Road Series here, he finished second on the first stage and then won the time trial on the second day, which is a fantastic
This is the kind of stuff that, you read a Grand Champion's biography in 20 years' time and he's saying, oh yeah, my first National Road Series race was also my first race and I was second.
Exactly right. And he actually posted up in that first stage thinking that he'd won the race and then got beaten. But he posted up with 2 laps to go. So he won the second stage, and he was riding as an individual rider against big teams, Bridgelane and ARA, and so they just kind of worked him over on the remaining stages, and he couldn't win overall. But that ride got him noticed, and he got a stagiaire gig with the St George Continental team to race in Asia for the rest of last year. And then that also got him a gig with Bridgelane for this season. And he started off the year really well by winning the National Under-23 time trial. But, yeah, you mentioned allocations there. At the Tour Down Under, there's the Australian national team, and 4 spots of the 7 on the team go to the team that wins the National Road Series from the previous year. So Bridgelane won that, so they got 4 spots. And even though he was a new rider with the team, he got picked in the squad as a 19-year-old.
Is there any, 4 have to go to the leading NRS team? Is there any, the top 4 riders within the team, or can they literally send any of their riders they want?
I think that's at the team's discretion. They can send whoever they want to send. And they obviously thought that he was an exciting talent that just needed World Tour racing, and that's kind of what his sports director Matt Wilson said when I spoke to him the other day, was that he's just so new to the sport and already at 19 a bit behind the 8 ball because he hasn't done much racing. So they just need to get him in there and just give him experience, and that's what they've done this week, and I think he's shone.
At the risk of, I don't know the entire backstory of how NRS teams work and how the 4 riders selected to go onto the national team works and all that, but at the risk of missing something obvious, it sounds like a pretty good system. It sounds like, it's the only World Tour race that has a national team. Tour of Switzerland also maybe has national teams in it. Could be wrong about
the UCI rules don't allow it, but you can get an exemption from the Professional Cycling Council, which TDU and I guess other events get as well. So yeah, I think it is a good system. I think it's incentive for the top teams to do well, to then get that exposure on a much bigger stage. And while Bridgeland itself doesn't actually get that exposure, it's kind of exposure by proxy, I guess, and the riders get talked about. And
well, I mean, you have things like, yes, the Bridgeland jersey isn't there, but he's still wearing the team helmet and riding the team bike, and we're all talking about Bridgeland, and we unfortunately we probably don't get opportunities to talk about teams like that throughout the rest of the season. So indirectly, I guess, it's still a benefit to the team. They can still use it as, exposure and put that into their proposals for attracting sponsors and that in the future.
I also think it's good that by limiting it to, say, 4 of the team coming from that winning NRS team, it's if it was just the whole team, sure, it would be, say, in this case, Bridgelane, but then by having just 4, it gives you the option for young talent coming up in Australia to be seen as well. It gives opportunity there, which I think is really important from a longer term picture, because
the other way it could have worked, I guess, is that the winning NRS team gets an entry in as the Australian national team, and I've seen things like that happen before. A team of riders from one trade team switch their trade team jerseys for national team jerseys, and they ride a race as a national team. But I think the mix is better. It means that if there is, like you've just said, Rupert, if there is a rider who deserves a spot, there is still that opportunity. I kind of wonder though if 4 is maybe too many. It's not ready for discussion here, but initially when you'd said 4, I was like, whoa, that's a high number. That's like, they could have, the winning NRS team could have 2 or 3 riders who scooped up all the points, and then all of a sudden you've got a 4th rider who maybe isn't World Tour level thrown in at the deep end. Nice experience.
Interestingly, the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race, which happens next week and is also a World Tour race, has got a different system in place this year. Normally they'd have a national team there as well, but they've actually got 2 continental teams going. Bridgelane is one of them, and ARA Skip Capital is the other one. So they also had to apply for an exemption from the UCI to be allowed to do that. But in this case, it's a much more direct exposure for those top teams, which is cool. Good. So stage 4, as we said, not a whole lot happened, to be perfectly honest, until about 11 Ks to go, when the break was caught, the break of Medway and Rangel. We'd hoped that there would be crosswinds. We talked about that turn to the west in Goolwa. There was no wind.
No. I was wrong. Entirely wrong.
Which is unfortunate, because it looked like they were setting up for it, but in the end, Medway was caught as the last rider just after that corner, and then what followed was a pretty chaotic, kind of messy sprint, really, into Port Elliot. There's a couple of little pinches up towards the finish line there. Beautiful finish, wonderfully scenic, but a kind of messy finish. And the result was the same. Welsford won again, his 3rd sprint win in 4 days, and easily the best sprinter here, but he didn't do it the easy way yesterday, did he, Rip?
Not at all. There's a few nervous moments there. There was a great image, though, at I'm pretty sure it was Danny Van Poppel, wasn't it, who was just waving his arm to say, go, 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 just like he had.
I kind of wondered, was Sam considering stopping in that moment, and he just needed that extra motivation? Go on, keep going. Just to remind him.
On his birthday, I think, and that 3rd win up for grabs, that was giving him extra motivation for sure. And I think it was a credit again to the strength of Sam and the Bora-Hansgrohe train. We've been talking on about it, but to still dominate with a scrappy sprint like that, shows an extra edge that they have, and when there's scrappy sprints, there's an extra edge of intimidation, and all those sort of elements come into it as well, the quick thinking responses, the calmness under pressure, under duress like that, and they still came up with the goods, so it's just reinforced their authority on it. I mean, the other point was obviously Luke Plapp not starting yesterday.
Yeah, great point.
That obviously impacted Jaco Alula, but we've been going on about Caleb Ewan and Jaco Alula this week, but they're not the only team that's missed out on sprint wins. The other sprinters, it's more of a credit to Bora-Hansgrohe, I think, and what the impact they've had on this race so far in the four stages.
I do think we should talk about Jaco quickly, though. I mean, Ewan finished 18th on that stage, which obviously very disappointing for him, and it's been a tough week, and as we'll get to, they didn't have a great stage 5 either in the end, but Rupert, I think you spoke to Matt White. You were saying about how Jayco and how Ewan have viewed this week.
That's right. I just wanted to talk to him just about how, we spoke yesterday about how the race is in two parts, the sprinters race and stage 5 and 6 being the GC race, the climbers race. And obviously for Caleb Ewan and Jayco Alula's sprint train, stage 4 was ostensibly the end of the sprinting campaign here. And so I just spoke to Matt about trying to just do a bit of a review on what is wrong, what's not working, albeit it is early in the season. I pressed him again though about what was the illness.
Yeah,
and he said,
that wasn't disclosed, was it?
No, he said I don't want to talk about that. So
interesting.
Makes me wonder anyway. He said he doesn't want to talk about it, but he said it's categorically not to do with his fitness, and there's no question about the training he's been doing coming into this race. He said that. He did allude to the element of confidence, and not just confidence of Caleb, but also the sprint train. But I guess in sprint trains, the two go hand in hand. The train has to have confidence in its sprinter, and the sprinter has to have full confidence in the sprint train. So, albeit it is the first race of the year, but Bora-Hansgrohe, again, is the first race of the year with a new sprinter as well, and they've shown how quickly they have been able to turn that around. There will come of races where Bora-Hansgrohe don't win, and they'll go through a rocky period. And Whitey said to me at the end, just before he drove off, he did say, if he wins a couple of stages in the Giro and or Milan-San Remo, what's happened here or not happened here, no one will care.
It's true.
That's true. So it is early in the season, but there is high pressure here for an Australian team with an Australian sprinter who's made a return to a team in headlining circumstances, after headlining circumstances leaving the team. So there is inevitable pressure here, and there's certainly expectation within the team that this tour would have ended differently for Caleb and the sprinters, or the sprint train.
Regardless of what the illness was or whatever was going on there, it forced him out of the Down Under Classic on Saturday evening. He wasn't at the team lunch on the following 2 days after that, and so you've got to assume it was something that had him quite depleted in some way. And heading into a 6-day World Tour stage race already depleted isn't really setting you up to perform anywhere near your best. So it was always likely that the situation was going to get worse. His best opportunity of one might have been the first day, and the first day was presumably one of his first days back on the bike after whatever happened.
And it was really hot, and he was feeling ordinary still.
So it's kind of no surprise to me that he wasn't able to come up with the win, given everything, whatever happened before.
No, but whatever. I think it's probably a mixture of everything, and also to be fair to him, I guess an illness is an illness. If it's a medical situation, you've got to respect people's privacy on that. We don't know.
Sure.
And again, I just think the benefit of time. A lot of people will see Caleb next week in Victoria at the Torquay Beach Classic, and then Cadell's Classic Great Ocean Road Race. A few days respite maybe after this will give Caleb a bit of time to recover, but then he goes back to he'll go to Oman, Muscat Classic and Tour of Oman, and then prepare for Milan-San Remo. So before we know it, he'll be back. The season will be quarter of the way down the road. So I don't think we should jump to too many conclusions yet, but I do believe that this block of performance does need some explanation, just to account for it, both from the team, and I think that's what I'm writing on just at the moment about that, just sort of a report card to put some things in perspective, but also to raise and look at some issues of what have to be looked at and why, and also how the team look at it with their debriefs, post-stage debriefs. So there's a whole lot of stuff there, but...
So that'll be on Escape Collective soon, probably by the time this podcast comes out.
Yes, if I hurried up and wrote it. It could have been out by now, actually.
So Isaac Del Toro, who came into the stage leading, finished the stage leading as well, and there was a funny moment towards the end of the stage, I think probably 10k to go, just as the sprint trains were getting into action and getting ready for that finish, where Del Toro dropped off the back of the bunch and then worked his way back up, and somebody asked him about that in the press conference afterwards. So what happened there? Did you have an issue? Did you what happened? And he was like, I just kind of wanted to test my legs a little bit. I was just the implication was it was just a bit too easy, and he wanted to just see where his legs were at, so he just dropped off the bunch and then fought his way back on his own, which I think that's kind of cool. But if he hadn't got back, it would have been pretty bad.
So we say, don't try that at home at your club crit.
That's right, yeah. Hubris. It left us with an interesting situation, though, at the end of the stage. So Del Toro was leading, but there were 69 riders within 11 seconds of the lead. And that wasn't all that unexpected, given we had 4 flat stages to that point. But it did set things up nicely for today's stage 5 from Christie's Beach to Willunga Hill. This is the first edition of the TDU that's had both Willunga finish and Mount Lofty finish, which comes tomorrow. Again, we had a small break off the front. Liam Walsh from the national team, Samuele Battistella from Astana, Johan Jacobs from Movistar, and Casper Peterson from Sudal Quickstep. They led till about 30 kilometres to go when Peterson clipped off the front on his own. He was caught at the first ascent of Willunga, where Luke Burns, who's leading the KOM classification, caught him just before the line to take maximum points up there. And then the race was basically all together again on the fast run-in back to the base of Willunga and for the start of the final climb. Well, Jake Olula took it up with Chris Harper. He was instrumental quite early on. But Rup, do you want to run us through what happened after Harper hit the front?
Well, yeah, Chris Harper was up there, and then also there was the DCM jersey was seen up there. And who was it?
Oscar Onley.
Oscar Onley, who boldly declared yesterday, I've come here for a good result and I'm going to try and win this race.
Yeah, shout out to you, Rup. You wrote a story yesterday throwing forward to the 2 climbing stages of the race, and the 2 guys you spoke to were Oscar Onley and Stevie Williams, first and second on the stage. So that crystal ball's working well for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first time I'd say, probably the first time in my career that that's ever happened. So I better milk it tonight at the dinner table, I can tell you.
Your season's off to a good start.
Yeah, but yeah. I've taken the Bora-Hansgrohe approach.
That's right.
No, it was a great ride by Oscar. But the funny thing was when Oscar and Harper were away, then they got caught again. You could see, knowing what Oscar was talking about, you could see that sort of sense of wanting to go, but he played the wise game because you could see that the group was going to catch them again. But he just kept in a good position, and he was ready for the final eventual split, which formed.
He said afterwards a couple of times actually that he was really uncertain about what he was doing. So when Harper got away and Onley followed across, he said, I didn't know if that was the right move to follow. It was too early. I really didn't want to go too early. And then a bit further up the road as well, when Alaphilippe made his move with a couple hundred metres to go from that small group, Onley was first on his wheel. And again, he said, I didn't know if that was the right thing to do. Interesting that the combination of that self-doubt and also what ended up being a perfect result, because he managed to come off Alaphilippe's wheel beautifully coming into that last corner and no one could come around him.
Yeah. Did Alaphilippe lead him out, or did Alaphilippe mistake a line in the road for the finish, or did Alaphilippe go for the KOM points, or does anybody know what happened there?
The answer to all those things is yes. I think... So, for those who haven't seen it, the finish line at Willunga is actually different to where the KOM line is. So the KOM line was before the corner, probably a 200, 150 metres, maybe 100 metres actually before the finish line. So that's where they got the KOM points the first time up and the second time up. But it's not actually the finish line. And it looks like Alaphilippe thought the finish line was at that KOM point.
Surely he couldn't though, because they had already done a lap and they went through the finish line on the first lap, didn't they?
They did.
And it's got a huge big banner over the line, and there's no banner over the line that he effectively sat up at with 100 metres to go.
You would hope that he worked it out from the first time up that wasn't the finish line. But stranger things have happened. I can imagine him cruising in the bunch being pretty easy for him.
Stranger things have happened, but I've also seen club races with bigger finish lines than what that was. So.
Funny enough, Stevie Williams said that he mistimed the sprint as well, and he was saying yesterday that about his chances today. He was actually saying my chance will be better if there is a small group.
Yeah.
But he did say he mistimed his sprint. So maybe there was a few who...
He may not have on the stage, but he did take the leader's jersey. Oscar Onley was told originally that in the interview immediately post-stage that he had secured the leader's jersey, which, hearing that at the time, I was like, that's an awfully confident statement to make, because it wasn't really confirmed. It's on stage placing counts back.
So I was going to say that So by winning the stage, Onley gets a 10-second time bonus, and by coming second on the stage in that little sprint, Williams got 6 seconds, and that added to the 4-second bonus he got back on stage 2 when he was third. And so the combination of those two put Onley and Williams on the same time, but because there's no other way to split them, it goes back to countback. So they actually add the total placings that each rider has got throughout the race, and then lowest total gets into the lead. So in this case, only his total places was 140 for the 5 days so far, and Williams is 111, so he has the lower, so he then goes into the overall lead. But as you said, they initially thought it was...
you can see how that mistake would happen. He had just won the stage. He had just taken a time bonus. You're sort of thinking, well, the only time bonuses so far have gone to the sprinters, but of course Williams had taken that third place in stage 2, which could prove pivotal. I don't know what Mount Laughlin is like. Actually, I do. I've ridden it twice this week, but I don't know what it's like in a race and if it's as decisive as Willunga was today.
Rupert can give us the lowdown on that in a minute, but it just does highlight to me just how important time bonuses are at this race, and we've talked about it before. Like it is such a crucial feature of the Tour Down Under that from the first stage we see teams racing for 1, 2, 3 bonus seconds, because it does make a difference on Willunga. And in the past we've seen it be the difference, or the thing that brings back riders like pure climbers like Richie Port and more all-rounders like Daryl Impey. And today we've seen it in a different situation, but it again is proving crucial to the race.
Again, that's what Onley and Williams were talking about yesterday, the importance of time bonuses. Little did they know that they would both end up on same time.
Time bonuses, yes, they've both had different time bonuses but ended up in the same time. It also tells you the importance of sprinting for every place you can get at the finish line. And how often do you see riders just rolling across the line? Not just rolling across the line, but maybe taking the safer option, rolling in near the back of the peloton or something. But actually it's like that third place that Williams got in stage 3, give him 4 bonus seconds, which is obviously vital, but it also give him presumably a much lower number that day than Oscar Onley had.
Yeah, and we should say that Isaac Del Toro, who was leading coming into the stage, he was up there in that group towards the finish and looked pretty good.
But he dropped off the back to test his legs.
That's right. He ended up finishing in 8th place, only 6 seconds down. So there was quite a few riders within sort of 10 seconds of each other, but those 6 seconds were, plus the time bonus at the finish, was enough to see him lose the overall lead.
Yeah.
Maybe just before we move on to tomorrow, we give Alaphilippe a bit of a hard time there for getting the finish line wrong, but I don't think I was expecting him to be really in the thick of the action this week, and that's maybe a good sign for the season ahead for Alaphilippe.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think if we were going to be the most fair we could to Alaphilippe, I think we'd say he had a crack and just didn't have it, and maybe just went a little bit too early than his legs allowed him to. But I think seeing him try like that is just great for the race. And I think we said it in the initial episode of this podcast that him attacking and being on the front foot and being aggressive is a great thing for the sport and a great thing for this race.
Yeah, and also it's a measure of the stature that he has when when someone like Onley says he saw Alaphilippe attack, he thought he better go with it, which is when I think is actually quite a sound call, because if he had that form, he might have won the stage and won the Tour. No one knew, did they really? So I think it's a measure of the mark of him, the respect that the peloton has for him, as a dual world champion. And this is sort of a segue into the last stage, but Alaphilippe, he's 13 seconds down, which I think is going to be far too far to go all the way. Depending how he feels, he may have a crack. I think there's nothing to lose by having a crack if you've got some confidence from finding out where he's at and where others are at, because he may be able to play on the tightness between Williams and Onley on the GC, but so will some of the others. So I think, funnily enough, the pressure will be on Onley and Williams just as much, irrespective of who's got the jersey. Yeah,
I think tomorrow's a stage that Alaphilippe could actually win. I think it's a little bit less difficult than Willunga is, and he's got the legs and he's got a punchy finish. So let's talk more about tomorrow in just a sec. Before we do that, Rup, have you heard about this Classics trip that we're running at Escape Collective?
The Classics trip? Yeah.
The member summit over at the Classics.
I've had some dispatches, yes.
Give them the rundown there.
You're about to invite me now, are you?
Well, it's a bit awkward that now I've brought it up and I'm not going to. But
I was going to get the invitation.
We'll see what we can do. We'll talk about
You're
that
welcome
later.
to sign up and join us.
It's like missing out on an invitation at the Tour Down Under at dinner when someone comes up to you and says, "Are you going to a dinner tonight?"
Like, what dinner?
I guess I'm not.
We are running a member summit for Escape Collective members. 7-night trip focused around Paris-Roubaix. This is pretty cool. You get to ride with 3 times Paris-Roubaix winner Johan Museeuw. He's going to teach people how to ride the cobbles. Going to see the famous showers at the Roubaix Velodrome, visiting a bunch of the famous climbs in Flanders, visiting Bruges. Going to be there at the finish of the Women's Paris-Roubaix. It's a fully supported trip. Transfers, bike hire, all that kind of thing is included. Most importantly, the Escape Collective crew is going to be there, so you get to ride with us. I say us, I don't know if I'm going yet. Ronan, I assume you're going to be there.
I would assume so, yeah.
It's a lot easier for you to get to Roubaix than it is for me.
It's certainly a lot easier than it is getting to Adelaide. Well, maybe not easier. It's the same amount of effort for me. I just sit and the pilot does all the flying, but it's much quicker. Let's put it that way.
This trip sounds like a lot of fun. I hope I can get to be there, and I think for our members, it's a great way to be involved. Obviously, it's escapecollective.com/summit for those that want to learn more about it. I think it's going to be a great week.
Is the Paris-Roubaix Sportif? It's part of it, isn't it?
It is. That's a vital part that I've missed off. The Paris-Roubaix Cyclo Sportif is included in the package there, and you can choose the distance that you'd like to do. But
you can also choose not to do it.
Yeah, from what I've heard, that's probably the better option. Sounds like a brutal day out.
I mean, it's one of those things that you have to. Yeah, you really do have to go and see it. And I'm not sure if both routes take in the Forest of Arenberg. If not, I might opt to do the one that doesn't include Arenberg, because the rest of them are enjoyable and a challenge. There's no way to understand how difficult those cobbles are without riding them, so it's worth it for that experience alone. I'm not sure if I'd rush them back to do Arenberg, but I would rush back to do any of the other sectors, definitely. So, but yeah, I mean, even Arenberg, it is manageable also.
Yeah, sounds like a fabulous trip. I lived over there in Belgium, for 4 years before I moved down to France. But covering all the classics and everything over there, all those places are, steeped in cycling tradition, but also in historical history of wars and the culture of Belgium, and you put it all together in one big cocktail, and you get an understanding of how passionate Belgians are about cycling and how hard the sport is there, and why the Belgian cyclists have that tough edge. That, not saying other countries aren't tough, but why people who go to live in Belgium, even when they're not Belgian, they come out of Belgium much tougher for it. So it's just a fabulous place to go.
Never mind all that. It's got Belgian beer as well, and it's floating with Belgian beer. That's what matters.
I'm going to Bruges after the Olympics in August with my bike anyway, so on my own tour.
Are we invited? Oh, thanks.
Rude. Sorry, you bring it up and you don't even invite us.
If you want to come on my tour, Rupert Guinness tours, you can come and pay for me and my dinners exclusively.
What's the opposite of a summit?
You can pour my wine and my beer.
Base.
So that sounds like it appeals to you, the Escape Collective Member Summit over at the Classics. Check it out, escapecollective.com/summit. All the information is there. We hope to see you there.
Really looking forward to it.
All right, tomorrow's stage, Unley to Mount Lofty. It's got nearly 3,000 metres of climbing and about 130 k's of racing, which is not too shabby at all. 3 laps of a finishing circuit that includes the climb up Mount Lofty. On paper, it's about 11 kilometres of climbing, that climb, but it's not quite as hard as you might think. It's kind of rolling, and it's not as steep, and certainly not as difficult as Willunga. Rip, you're out there today. I've seen video of you, in fact, at the finish line. Why don't you tell us about your little recon today?
Yeah, I was just practicing my sprint technique for next week's Heffron Park on Tuesday when I get back there. But it was, it's once you come over the top, it's a fast finish for the last 150 metres. I wasn't so fast in practice. I see potential for fastness, and so I have a video on my Instagram, and it's more comedy than anything analytically based. But it will be a fast finish, and as you said, the climb, it's a more gradual climb. I see a lot of them going up there in the big chain ring, and it'll be fast. It'll be fast when you see the peloton go past. It'll be fast. You'll be surprised, and so where the winning move is, or where the winning split comes, I don't know. Is this something that's going to have to try and go earlier? Because if you leave it to the last lap, I think it'll all be too tight by then. But we'll soon see. I mean, I think as we spoke about Alaphilippe's potential to win the stage, I still wouldn't discount Neef either, because he's obviously in pretty good form and he has a good sprint.
Is that Neves?
Neves, sorry, yeah.
He was third today, wasn't he? And looked very good on the climb and good in the sprint as well.
Yeah. So it's a hard one to call completely.
I think it's going to be a very similar scenario in that it'll come down to a small group sprint between the protagonists in today's sprint, and ultimately it could be a reversal which would decide the GC, or you could get the same result, which would decide the GC. But either way, it's going to be it'll not be on count back after tomorrow, I don't think, because presumably one of those two riders, possibly Navarez, is going to win the stage, take a 10-second bonus, and split the times that way.
Yeah, well, if he got the time, he's 5 seconds down, so if he wins the stage,
he wins. But then if Onley or Williams is second, then he doesn't win the overall. So
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I agree. I think that's what's going to happen, something like that.
There's a lot of different permutations, isn't there, when you factor in all those time bonuses. And we should also talk about the time bonuses early in the stage too. There are 2 intermediate sprints out on the day. Both of those offer 1, 2, and 3 seconds. And
it'll be interesting to see what Williams does in those, because finishing third in that stage 2. He obviously has a kick that he can use, and whether there's a breakaway, takes those time bonuses, whether Israel Premier Tech controls to go for those time bonuses. It'll be interesting to see. Those tactics are going to be the other teams will be paying a close eye on that also. But then looking through the 2 teams of the top 2 riders on GC as well, and even Ineos, if you include Navarez, any of those teams could control. They could set it up on the final climb. They could do something a bit earlier. It's 3 strong teams battling it out with the leaders. I'm obviously excluding a heck of a lot of other riders in the top 10 who could also spring a surprise tomorrow, but I just can't really see it based on today's performance, based on Mount Lofty, based on the way Tour Down Under normally goes. It's I don't see a Richie Port style performance where it
really
drops the entire field.
4 riders at most. Alaphilippe at an outside chance.
Okay. So who are those 4 riders? That's Williams in the lead currently, Onley in second,
Navarez in third, and Del Toro
in fourth,
and then Alaphilippe in fifth at 13 seconds. The other 5 seconds is for Navarro and Del Toro. Navarez and Del Toro. So I think just mathematically, an effort expended to try and get any time bonuses. Yeah, I see it beyond the reach of anybody. Well, if I said Alaphilippe, then you've still got Simon Yates and Bart Lehman and Valentin Perret-Pantra, who are still sort of there as well. But
it's going to take a big turnaround from what we've seen today, though. Yates tried today and ultimately wasn't successful. Those other riders, they not only could they match Yates' attack, but then they actually just distanced him once he had made that move.
You've got to have a sprint tomorrow.
It is worth noting that Yates won the stage to Mount Lofty last year. So he beat Jay Vine, and there's just the 2 of them at the top, just a little bit ahead of a small group. But he's going to need to do more than win the stage. He needs to win the stage and have a gap tomorrow.
Again, we opened this week talking about Jaco winning all stages and the GC. So at this point, they may well not be even thinking about GC, and they may just say, right, Simon, everything you can to win the stage. At which point, he certainly could play his cards differently and go for a stage win. That's a possibility, especially with it being such a tight race between the other riders.
Yes, yeah. I mean, if he wins the stage, the old cliche, the rest will.
And don't forget also that for Williams, if the time bonuses are taken first, second, and third across the line by all the riders, and he stays with Onley, he can't lose this point. If they're finishing within a place of each other, the count back is still going to be in his favour. So
in some ways, being on the same time with Onley is actually advantageous, because Onley's team's going to work to help. So if he can just stay with Onley, is actually...
I'm not sure DSM would do that. It would...
No, but the work that they do could inadvertently help.
I'm not sure DSM will control tomorrow. It's not really in their interest to control. They can sort of... What I took from Onley's interview actually was that the jersey wasn't really part of the... winning the race is part of the plan, but actually not getting the jersey might have been a bit of a relief. And then he was told he got the jersey, and he was like, oh, okay. And obviously he would have been happy to take it also.
I think also we need to talk about the strength of Israel Premier Tech here. It wasn't just Williams up there. Great captaincy by Simon Clark, and we saw they got who else was riding for them today?
George Bennett.
George Bennett
and Derek G.
Yeah, Derek G. I mean, as a team, they've ridden superbly on this tour, and even from the start, they've been getting. Williams got bonus points early in the week, which are handy to have.
And Strong was second on that stage too as well. Unfortunately, he's left the race since then, but
they're still strong though.
Still strong, yeah. He will remain strong.
The team's strong.
Yeah.
Still, I think it's one of the. If you look at the GC thing, it's collectively it's the strongest team on with all those angles covered.
Yeah.
And Simon Clark got kudos after the stage today for how well he he managed the race, managed the team heading into that.
Just on the leadership and on the possibility of the leader's jersey changing tomorrow, Williams said he is very much expecting it to be a very stressful day out there. He's expecting those teams to go for those bonus seconds, so they've got a lot of work to do to try and control that. And on the flip side of that, Onley said that he thinks it's going to be quite difficult for them to get the jersey off Williams, whatever that's worth. Could be foxing, I don't know. But his sports director, Luke Roberts, said that he thinks tomorrow's finish actually suits Onley better than today did. So, who knows? Lots to play for.
And Luke's been a sports director of some big teams with some big wins and Grand Tours. So he knows a thing or two. He has a golden touch. Put a bit of pressure on him, but now...
I think that's another sort of indication as to the team's motivations tomorrow. Onley, no doubt, will be going for the stage one again and will be confident he can take a stage one. And Williams will be thinking, well, I've got the upper hand in sprints. And, it kind of, those early sprints again, I really can't see DSM wanting to control, because they would be handing the opportunity for bonus seconds to Williams, with very little chance of Onley out-sprinting him for them. So it's the flip of that. The flip side of that is that Israel Premier Tech probably want to go for those sprints, and DSM probably want to do some sort of lead-out train on the final climb to put Onley in an even better position to repeat what he did today. It's going to be a fascinating stage. Like it's as I said, I don't think they're going to end up on the same time tomorrow evening. I think one of them is going to win the stage. I'll correct myself from earlier. They can finish on the same time and still win the overall if they finish outside the time bonuses and finish within a place to each other.
Yeah, I think it's still all to play for, and I think the fact that we had a small group at the finish on Willunga today makes me think that we're going to have maybe even bigger group at the top of Lofty tomorrow, given it's a slightly easier finish. Just on Oscar Onley, I think there would be some people that watched today's race or that are listening to this that maybe don't know much about him. And I spoke to some of the DSM folk today about whether today's result was a surprise, because he's not a name that's come up a lot. Certainly in Australia, he's not really a known rider. But we spoke to Chris Hamilton, who is an Australian rider on DSM, and we asked him, were you surprised by this result? And he's like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We've seen him come up through the DSM development program over the last couple of years. We've known he's got a massive engine for a long time now. And he and Luke Roberts as well pointed to the 2022 Crow race in Croatia, and Rup, you wrote about this yesterday, but where there was only one guy that could follow Jonas Vingegaard on the two uphill finishes, and only one guy finished on the same time as him, and that was Oscar Onley. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, I'm sure Vingegaard is probably not surprised by his performance today if he was following online, but. And he finished third overall in that tour, and then last year he had a pretty good year. He was 10th in Tour of Poland and 6th in Tour of Hungary and 3rd or 5th somewhere else, another tour. So he's experienced with GC racing and obviously quite a good performer at the top end. So from last year, so it's natural that he's come into this year with higher aspirations than what he had last year, and obviously based off 22 as well with the Crow Tour. But I think he's going to definitely be an exciting guy to watch from here. And the Tour Down Under's had a knack of producing some big names in the future. Peter Sagan made his pro debut here at age of 18. Alberto Contador, when he won at Willunga, not Willunga Hill, but at Willunga, it was his first race back after his brain operation, and he won there, and he went on to win Tours de France, and Neil Stevens at the time said this guy will win a Tour de France one day. So I tried to ask Neil yesterday. I was trying to get him to put the same label on a couple of people, but that was yesterday when he hadn't seen what happened today. I should have asked him tomorrow, or today. But this race has produced some future champions, to watch for. So again, not putting too much pressure on them, but just it's great to see young riders coming through do exceptional things, and just to keep a memory of them later as they progress.
Only is only 21 as well, still very young, and he said that he's really struggled tactically in the last few years. That's something he's battled with, and he pointed to his teammates being able to help him out, like Chris Hamilton he mentioned, but and Chris Hamilton also spoke about how Oscar struggled a bit with positioning in the bunch, and how he felt nervous in the bunch the first few days of this race, and how he's actually improved over the course of this tour. That was quite obvious, Chris said. So all of that points to a really exciting future, and a rider we're going to be hearing a lot more about, I think.
He is Scottish also, I'm not sure if we mentioned that yet, but he also raced with the Spokes Junior racing team when he was junior, obviously, and that team actually has a long history of sort of developing young riders who've gone on to great careers within the sport. Unfortunately, that team did fold at the end of last season, though, so I'm sure the people behind that team sort of be bittersweet watching the performance as we're recording this, and I know they're probably just waking up in Scotland now, and they probably turn on the TV and see the results, and they'll probably be delighted about that. And the people I know there myself, like Blair Whiteside, who ran that program for a long time. I know it was tough for him to see the team end, but you've got this legacy that sort of lives on now within the World Tour peloton.
Just a bit about Williams too. He's Welsh, and this is his second year at Israel, and he was at Bahrain before for 4 years, but he never he was talking yesterday about how he never sort of found his straps there. He enjoyed his time, but just never got settled, and now he does feel settled, and obviously he's got the opportunity here. Obviously another famous Welsh cyclist being Geraint Thomas. I actually asked him a bit about Geraint yesterday and the influences that he's had on him, and he said he's had a big influence on him, not just as a rider but also as a person, and learning how to balance in life. And Geraint Thomas has a great balance in his life, and I think that's a lot of his longevity of his career, is because he looks beyond cycling and obviously performs in cycling, but he also likes to go and cheer on Wales at the rugby and drink beer in the off season. So he has a good outlook on that, and Williams was talking to me yesterday about how he likes rugby, but he really loves football.
I thought you were going to say he likes rugby, but he really likes beer.
No, he really likes beer. That's why he goes to the rugby, because he really likes football, and he's a Liverpool supporter, and he loves all sport. He loves cricket. He loves the Ashes series, he says, even though that's not Wales. I was about to say, and it's not Britain who plays the Ashes. It's another country in Great Britain. But anyway, he likes the Ashes. He loves sport. And I did say, well, now you're Welsh, are you a good singer? Because they love to sing. He said, I can do all right in karaoke.
So you went deep, mate. You went really deep.
Yeah, I didn't have scope to be able to put all that in the story. I thought I better put that info out there before someone else writes it or comes up tomorrow. So at least you can say on the Escape Collective, you've
got the scoop.
Got the scoop for what it's
worth. Good at
worth.
karaoke, Stu Williams.
And I'm not going to sing.
All right, so behind us, it looks like the buffet is really roaring into action now. We've got the staff laying out food, and I assume the zoo will open soon. The riders will come in.
I wonder who's in first.
Yeah, is there a race, do you reckon? Do they have particular feeding time?
Their own
this is the information
times.
we need.
They have secret Strava from your room too.
We're going to wrap this up. We'll be back.
Before we do, maybe a quick mention for a special episode of Geek Warning and Performance Process, a combined episode. Where I'm not sure if we mentioned it in the podcast a couple of nights ago, but we did a pit walk with JP Ballard of Swisside, sort of critiquing some of the setups that the teams are using here and different equipment that they're using, some of the choices that they're making, and how well optimized some teams are and how compromised other teams are. So well worth checking that out if you haven't done so yet.
Compromise is a very good word. That's great. And also, before we go, Ronan, where are you off to right now, and what are you wearing on your feet?
Well, I'll start with what I'm wearing on my feet, because I know more about that than where I'm going next. But on my feet, I've got socks, green socks with 2 yellow buttons that are sort of doubling up as eyes, and the top of the socks have a white section that sort of looks like crocodile teeth, and the whole idea is that these socks look like crocodiles on my legs.
It looks like they're eating your legs, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the crocodile's got its mouth open, it's eating my legs.
Nipping at your heels.
Well, my theory is that if the crocodiles see the crocodiles on my feet, that they'll think I'm one of them and they'll not attack me. So it's a safety measure, really.
Do you come across many crocodiles in your everyday life that you need a protection mechanism like this? Or?
I mean, I'm not really an expert on Australia, so I'm just taking no chances.
Okay, yeah, we're a little too far south for crocodiles to be a problem, but I like that you've taken precautions there. That's right. You're off to the car park climb.
I'm off to the car park climb, yes, which some listeners may well remember from a few years back. I think it was around several occasions, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think a couple of years, yeah.
And it's using one of the multi-storey car parks within Adelaide City Centre here. Riders head off. It's a race from just outside the car park entrance on ground level up through the multi-storey car park. You're racing against one other rider head to head. First rider to the top wins.
6 flights, right?
Six flights it is, yes, and qualifies to go into the next round. Long story short, there's a lot of riders participating, and if you win 6 races, I think it is, you will be car park climb champion. So we're going to check it out. I'm not sure if I am actually. I had apparently there was some sort of move to organise a race between myself, Wade Wallace and Mitch Docker, but I don't have a bike with me, so that's going to make it it's definitely going to put me at a disadvantage. I'm not sure if I can get a bike, but just the way things worked out today, didn't get back in time, didn't get organised in time.
How do they organise the draw for each head-to-head?
Not sure about that, but I'm figuring we'll probably have more details in the days to come. Interesting or funny story about the car park climb. I was actually in Adelaide during the Tour Down Under 6 years ago for my honeymoon, and heard about the car park climb as at that time would have been a Cycling Club's Velo Club member. Didn't work at Cycling Tips, didn't work at Escape Collective obviously, but I was a member and I'd heard about the climb, so I thought this would be great. Convinced my new wife that we should go down and watch the car park climb. Went the whole way downtown, got to the car park, only to realise that we were 24 hours late and the car park climb had happened the night before, so that put me in good standing.
Well, don't be late tonight.
I'm already late as we're recording this. It started half an hour ago.
Very good. Well, thank you all very much for listening. To our Escape members, thank you so much for supporting what we do. Everything we do here at Escape Collective, from podcasts to written articles to events, everything we do is made possible by our wonderful members. If you haven't yet signed up and you would like to support what we do, please think about doing so. escapecollective.com/join. You can get all the information there. We really do appreciate your support. Ronan, guys, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.